It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
And Les Webster.
Good evening to all who made it through election.
Oh yeah, a little glimpse behind the veil, folks. We record on Tuesday nights.
Woohoo! So, how is everybody doing?
I'm surviving.
I'm here, so I guess I'm good.
Yeah,
And you?
You're always here.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it's because we got the beer here, that's why.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Skype beer.
I'm alright, I guess. I hope everybody out there is doing well. So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, it's funny you should mention galaxies. See, I had thought about it for a while and was like, okay, I'm gonna, when we do this part, I'm gonna grouse about how I haven't had time and I've got this huge stack of trades that I still need to read and it's got a whole bunch of cool stuff in it. But then I got home today and sitting on my doorstep was my shiny new Blu-ray copy of Red Dwarf Season 11.
Woohoo!
So you can take a wild guess at what I'm going to be doing the rest of the week.
Reading trades.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, you lucky duck. That's great.
I'm a pre-ordering duck is what I am. But that's all right. I've been looking forward to this for a while, so I'm also
Cool.
I'm also looking forward to season 12 next year, but that's obviously something we can talk about next year.
Mm-hmm. A little bit down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Les?
I attended a convention in Bryan, Texas this past weekend. And it was fun. Had a good time. Met some new people. Met the cast of Stranger Things.
Ooh.
4 members of the cast.
Cool.
I got to spend time with my favorite artist/writer. It was good. And then, of course, I was wishing I had Netflix because there's so many good things coming out.
That's pretty easy to fix, you know.
So I've heard.
They'll pretty much sell that to anybody.
Do you want to do a shout out to your favorite artist writer?
Yes, I would. I got to spend some time at the table with Howard Chaykin. And it was
Sweet.
so much fun to hear his opinions and also to bring up titles of several of his books that other people standing at his table had no knowledge of. I got to kind of lord that over them.
Little clueless, huh?
Just a bit.
Yeah. I remember my first time of interacting with him, and of course, Les, you were there with me. And if you remember how he was so approving of the choices I had for him to autograph.
And he's truthful about that.
Yeah.
I saw him sign something for somebody and saying that he hated it and then he thought it was garbage. But I gave him a copy of Black Hawk, the first issue of the 3-issue series he did for DC. And he fawned over that. He said this was, to him, it was some of his best work, and he thoroughly enjoyed doing that one issue. So I thought I was pretty lucky in that respect.
Good choice, man. Good choice. Obviously scored some points with him.
Mm.
He asked me my name, so I think he knows that he'll be able to send the guards to take me out of there if I show up at his table at his next show here.
And he actually will be in the DFW area in February. So
Yes.
yeah, you get to stalk him again.
Yes, I do.
Cool.
And some armed guards will escort me out.
Yeah, and then we can have a happy restraining order party.
Yeah.
That's it. We'll talk on broadcast about restraining orders and how effective they truly are.
Mm-hmm.
Less night in jail. Well, cool. I'm glad you had a good time. I'm glad you were able to make it back safe. I'm gonna go ahead and shout out to the artist who went down with you that you were partnering with, Thomas Branch, who's a big fan of the Fellowship.
See, and you said that you got to hang out with your favorite writer artist, and my first thought was, wow, that's a nice thing to say about Branch.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too. That's why I wanted to.
And then in the back of my head, it was like, Howard Chaykin was there? Cool. But anyway.
Well, I think Mr. Branch will let me get past this because he's not into the writing portion as much.
Honestly, he'd probably let it slide anyway because, hey, it's Howard Chaykin. So.
Yeah. And it's Thomas Branch.
And Thomas Branch also is a creator. He does have some characters of his own, so there'll come a time.
Well, Branch is a cool guy, so shout out to him. For me, basically catching up on comics and been working on some projects that are Fellowship related that will be coming down the lines soon. I'm not going to say how soon because honestly, there is a timetable. I'm just trying to figure it out right now. But some fun things coming down. Oh, did everybody catch that we're actually going to get a season 3 of Young Justice?
I think I might have even seen your Facebook post about that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember seeing your Facebook post on it, but so this is kind of new to me, but that sounds great.
Yep. They've actually started production on the 3rd season. So, I mean, this is not even just a, hey, it's coming. We're working on it.
Is this a Netflix thing?
I hadn't heard that much detail, but I would assume so because the first 2 seasons are on Netflix right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't show up on Netflix. And not on, say, Cartoon Network where they were originally. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Dang it, Mike, another reason I have to get Netflix.
I'm telling you, man. I don't know how you've held out this long.
You know, there's been the threats of doing a Moon Knight series, so yeah, you may want to think about it. Well, awesome. Before we get into this week's topic, wanted to do a shout out to our sponsors. Take a couple minutes to thank them for supporting the show and the website. First off, I would like to say thank you to Peter Smitty and Alternative Comics in their Make Mine Indie, which is if you're not aware of it, is a digital catalog that lists several indie titles that are available either in print or in digital form that are not available. Some of them are not available through Diamond and through regular comic stores.
And by several, he means like dozens.
Like dozens,
Not
yes.
like 4 or 5. We're talking dozens.
I believe we saw that the fall catalog was 180 pages.
It was 180 pages.
180 pages, and there's a lot of them had 2 or 3 preview pages, so you can actually get an idea of the art and a little bit of the story. If you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, click on our sponsors tab, and look over to the left-hand side of the screen. You will see a link to Make My Indie page. That will take you there, and you can be able to get the fall catalog free. It's a free download, or it's available through Comixology, but go ahead and check out our website anyway, because this is a cool website if you hadn't checked it out already.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we need to thank Things from Another World as a sponsor. While you're on that page, you can check out some of the good deals that are available through them currently. There is a free standard U.S. shipping on in-stock comics and graphic novels. Orders of $35 or more. All you have to do is use the code SNOWBAT, which expires November 13th. And then there's evergreen specials of 40% off on comics, statues, toys, and merchandise. 30% off pre-order manga titles. And then the ever-popular 50% off Nick and Dick comics and graphic novels. So while you're at the sponsors page, you'll see a link on the left-hand side for Things from Another World. Just click on that. That'll take you to their website, and it lets them know that you found them through us, and shop to your heart's content. There's a lot of good stuff over there.
Mm-hmm. Go nuts. Your kids don't need to eat this month.
Wow.
If you're going to sell it hard, right?
That's right. There you go. Don't half-ass it.
Absolutely not.
Please, sir, may I have another?
Alrighty. On to today's topic. This was actually suggested by a friend of ours, friend of the fellowship, who has actually been on the show a few weeks back, Eddie Medina. He was wanting us to talk about the Atlas Seaboard Comics. And for those of you who are not aware, and I'm sure there's a good percentage of you, this was a extremely short-lived publishing company. Roughly, I think it's from 74. I'm trying to. Okay, so yeah, 74 through 75. So that is short-lived. It was founded by Martin Goodman, who founded Timely Comics, which became Atlas Comics, which became Marvel Comics that we know of today. And of course, this is back in the 60s. He had left in the early 70s and decided to create another publishing line. And some of the stuff that was kind of interesting that he did was he brought in young talent who, you talk about timing and all that, later became big names. One of them was Howard Chaykin. Rich Buckler, of course, names like Bill Adams, Steve Ditko, and Wally Wood. And the thing that was kind of interesting with this publishing company was they handled it more creator-owned. So they owned the creations that they did, which was revolutionary at that time. I mean, it wouldn't even...
So much so that it didn't really take off for another 20 years.
Right, I was about to say this wouldn't be attempted again until Image Comics was founded in '91, I believe.
Yeah. Yes.
So, I think there was about 23 titles that at most lasted 3 issues, and then 5 magazines. There were comic magazines. And we were kind of talking a little bit about this before we started up. Some of these titles were not all that original, but some of them were, such as Chaykin's Scorpion, which later was taken to Marvel and became what Dominic Fortune, was that right, Les?
Yes, Dominic Fortune. It was a great idea of the 30s mercenary, and it was just fun to read.
Another one was Demon Hunter. You know, anybody who's a big fan of Marvel and knows a lot of the characters would probably look at some of the images of Demon Hunter and say that's Devil Slayer. Well, he became Devil Slayer in Marvel Comics a few years later. It's essentially the same costume, just a different color scheme. But you had the likes of the Brute, which was kind of a Hulk knockoff, except for he was more of a caveman, kind of caveman monster type thing. The one that always interested me was the Cougar, which was essentially a Night Stalker takeoff except with the exception of, instead of him being a reporter, newspaper reporter, he was actually a Hollywood stuntman.
Oh, that's cool.
It's definitely different, but yeah, Planet of Vampires was kind of a takeoff of it. It was kind of like Planet of the Apes, but it also took a lot from I Am Legend because about that time Omega Man was out in the theaters. So
Yeah, that would have been 73. Remember
yeah,
right?
and then some of these were more kind of traditional books. I mean, there was like Iron Jaw, which was a kind of a Conan thing, and some war books and all that. And then Vicky was just actually a reprint of Tippy Teen, which was but the only difference was they went back and modernized the clothes.
Interesting.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Les? I'm sorry.
No, I agree with you. They had a lot of different types of titles. You had police titles, you had westerns, you obviously had superheroes, monsters. You had Hands of the Dragon, which was kung fu type.
Well, yeah, it was a kung fu kind of like the master of kung fu, that kind of thing. Because the thing about that, it's '70s. That was what was popular,
Hmm.
Yeah, you had Grim Ghost.
which was a good
Uh,
run. I
yeah,
like Grim Ghost.
and the Destructor wasn't the Destructor like I don't want to say a secret agent, but a guy for hire to attack. Am
I'm
I remembering that right or not?
I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've read these. I don't have all these, and the thing is I came across this line several years ago. My uncle had passed away, and he was a comic book collector and collected a lot of other type of stuff. And I was going through his collection, seeing what because some of it unfortunately was damaged by their water damage and stuff. But I found these books, and I was like, I've never even heard of this publisher. And I could tell that these were '70s books. I was like, wow, okay. And it kind of grabbed me. I mean, so, like I said, some of this stuff was nowhere near original, but it was kind of cool to read because, it was fun stuff.
Well, and
Um,
I bet it's rare enough to be worth something at this point too.
yeah,
If you were so
maybe.
inclined, of course.
Yeah. There was another one, Target, that seemed kind of more of almost a human target, which of course is timely because he's showing up on a certain show right now. But kind of James Bond, human target type of thing, if I remember correctly. But the thing that was kind of weird is a lot of these didn't really have superhero costumes for the first couple of issues, and then there was the third issue when all of them all of a sudden got costumes. I think they called it, what was it? The third issue switch. I mean, Les could tell you. I mean, a perfect example was Scorpion. The first couple of issues, he kind of looked like he was just a guy in a regular. I'm trying to remember what. It wasn't anything special, was it? It was just
No, it was almost like a jumpsuit.
yeah. And then in the third issue, he's wearing like a superhero costume and with a mask and everything.
Yeah, I just stumbled across an image of Scorpion #1, and he's wearing like a leather jacket and jeans.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. With the damsel in distress.
Yep, that's the one. But yeah,
But
this stuff it kind of, I mean, the way you guys are describing it, it kind of seems to parallel what Atlas was doing before they kind of switched into the Marvel mode, because there was a wide array of genres, if you will, going on there before. I mean, I know that Marvel didn't switch to superheroes 100% that fast, but yeah, there's a wide array of stuff here. I mean,
hmm
all kinds of action and some suspense and varying time periods. And it's crazy, man.
hmm
You'd never see Marvel even trying that now, or DC for that matter.
This, to me, would be something to collect in a hardbound or a trade paperback format. Take 2 or 3 of the titles, put them in one issue.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
And
that hard to
just,
pick 2 or 3 that are similar in genre or style, or even do it by, you could almost do it by creators.
yes, that's true.
And then, yeah.
Because if you took Iron Jaw and Barbarians, there you've got 5 issues that have Iron Jaw in them. So you already sold that.
Hmm.
You got your Savage Combat Tales and Blazing Battle Tales. Gee, I wonder if you could get that to kind of mush together. I enjoy this stuff, the stuff I've been able to come across, and it is such an easy, fun series to read. Each one of the titles is kind of unique, and it's almost, to me, I was almost hoping that they could run a little longer so they could form a Justice League type situation, or even do a lot of crossovers. So you get to see, if you read one, then you find out about another.
Well, that almost happened, but it would have happened about 40 years later. I mean, I don't want to jump ahead, but I just kind of piggyback on what you just said.
We can always jump
You,
back.
that's true. Uh, Atlas tried a revival back about 2010, 2011, and I know I was excited about it, and you were pretty excited about it too, Les, if I'm not mistaken. That
True, very true.
it was Martin's grandson, Jason, who was trying to start up Atlas again, and we had 2-3 issues of Grim Ghost and at least that many on Wolf the Barbarian. And then what they were going to do, there was going to be this big event called Atlas Unified, where does exactly what you were just talking about, is just kind of get them all together. But the problem is legality has gotten involved. Someone had actually acquired the trademark for Atlas Comics. The problem is Jason had the rights to all the characters. So last thing I've heard of was the trademark for Atlas had been sold over to Dynamite Comics sometime in 2014. You would think that Jason can approach them and say, "Hey, let's work something out and maybe start doing a Atlas line, or and then possibly reprinting the old stuff in collected form." But yeah, nothing's happened yet.
See, and that would be a great way to figure out if there's any interest, is to do basically what
Mm-hmm.
Les was suggesting and pull together a bundle of 5 or 6 issues of a couple of different titles and bundle them up and do a softcover trade paperback and sell it for $15 and see who buys it, see if it sells.
Yeah, I agree.
And if it sells, you do another one with different characters and see if that sells. And then after not too long, you have an idea of whether people will buy these things. I mean, and given that they were short runs to begin with, you'd think that people would be pretty happy with a 4 or 5 issue mini series on some of these characters, if on a character they're interested in. I'm just saying. So
I get it.
if anybody at Dynamite's listening, there you go.
Well, I would buy it. I'm sure Les would too.
Well, looking at their list, I see 61 issues of comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can break that down and do some good pairings to get all that stuff in.
Well, what they can do is collect these in some way by genre, if you can. I mean, Sci-fi, fantasy. Obviously, the heroes can go together. Horror, there may be enough for itself, and then one maybe just be a hodgepodge because there's only like one western, a couple of war titles, and then a Vicky, which is basically a teeny bop type thing. So, but I would be interested in having all this collected, and I definitely would love to see new stuff.
I would too. And you think about it, if they really wanted to, they could separate it and have issue number one of several of the titles run. If they would collect them as first issues and then second issues, things like that, to give you the diverse look, they could do it that way instead of groupings. But like we discussed before, groupings I think would be a better fit. And it would be nice to see if they get enough reaction to restart a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing they could do is, you talk about first issues, you could just scan the suckers in and do a digital release of a handful of the first issues and see what kind of response you get.
Yeah, you could do that.
Slap them up on Comixology and see what happens,
Good idea.
Again, if anybody from Dynamite's listening, give us a holler. We'd love to have you on our show. Hey.
Please consider it. In both cases.
Yeah, that's definitely a cool idea. I kind of like that. I mean, both of them, but definitely throwing up as digital first, and just not for a lot of money. Just
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything. You don't have to put a whole lot of production value into it. Just scan the
right.
things. I mean, if you can do a bit of cleanup on them, fine, because I'm sure the pages are not. I'd be impressed if they have a really great copy of any of the originals anyway. But I mean, it doesn't have to be great just to see if there's any interest. You could slap it up there, charge $1.50 for it or something, and see how many of them you sell.
Yep, I like that.
What interests me, I'm noticing down here there's this list of what they call magazines.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of these I would be real curious to see examples of, although they have links, but they're dead.
Okay. Which ones?
I'm just looking at the Wikipedia on these
Mm-hmm.
guys, but well, Weird Tales of the Macabre obviously strikes an interest for me.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, they have a cover of one of the Devilinas, which it's an interesting cover, to say the least. That there's certainly hints of Vampirella there in the cover of Devilina number 2.
Well, I'm sure that was the intention.
And the cover describes it as illustrated stories of female-filled fantasy. So, maybe it's a little cheesecake. I don't know, but I would be curious to see. I would certainly be willing to drop $1.50 on Comixology to find out.
Yep.
Both cases. I might even toss $1 or $2 at the Movie Monsters just to see how that goes.
Yeah, and just to see what the difference is between that and Famous Monsters of Filmland, because I've got a feeling that's the direction they're going with.
I'm sure that's what that was the intention, yeah.
Probably, which might have been a noble cause, but I mean, obviously, the whole thing didn't work. There were other issues as to why it didn't work out, but
right. And from what I understood, they tried to do too much at once, and trying to be in a newsstand, because at this time it was that's pretty much where you're going to find was in the newsstand or maybe the grocery store. I mean, this would have been the early days of actual direct market stores. So you're talking about being in convenience stores, supermarket, newsstands, and with Marvel and DC having all the titles they had, and then some of the other publishers, you can see how this one it didn't get a chance, and I think they did a little too much. Because you're talking 23 titles of at least one issue. Most of them had two. A lot of them had three. A couple of them even had four. And you're basically, in a short time span, and then you had all the magazines as well, which is there was how many were there?
There were
2, 4,
five.
6. Well, yeah, titles, but yeah, there's 5 titles, but at
Issues.
2, 4, 11 issues. I don't know. That's not that bad, but
In a year and a half. I mean, yeah, that's doable.
yeah.
Um,
But I think they were just,
whether you're going to
I
build
don't know.
enough of an audience to keep the doors open, I mean, clearly they didn't.
Yeah,
However, that worked
yeah,
out.
right. And the other thing that's kind of funny was the fact that Jeff Roven was hired to edit the comic book line, and he was actually from Warren Publishing, which is pretty much the comic magazines, which were in black and white. And then Larry Lieber, who is the brother of Stan Lee, who we all know, pretty much wrote and drew color comics. Was hired to be the editor for the black and white magazines, which seems like a curious decision.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
So
Why? Yeah, that's puzzling.
Adam,
Well, I just see that they saw him as an editor there to start, and then he probably did some work there too. Because if you can do a color comic, you more than likely can do a black and white and edit it to accommodate both the story and the reader.
okay.
Am I missing it? Am I
I yeah,
am I
but
missing your point?
well, my thing is, I mean, yeah, if they can do one, they could probably do the other. But if they're known for doing something for a certain,
Why would you not play to their strengths? I mean,
thank
ultimately,
you.
it may not make any difference, but you don't
Yeah,
know that when you're starting out. And so you would think you would put your strongest guy, unless he just flat refused, you'd think you would put your strongest guy where he was strongest. And these guys, I mean, as a team for what they're doing, these two guys sound like a great team because you're doing both. You're doing both color and black and white. So why wouldn't you put the guy who has more experience with color doing the color, and the guy who has more experience with the black and white doing the black and white? Seems like an
Okay, now I see where you're going with it.
yeah. It's not really a slam on either guy. It's just a weird decision. I mean, obviously there's something going on there. Somebody made the decision for whatever reason. But
it just seems like an unusual decision to go that route.
yeah.
Okay. But then, according to Wikipedia, which is all-knowing, uh, Jeff Roven had left, and Larry Lieber then became the editor of the color comics. So he was back in his original position, and I don't know. Do you guys recall who picked it up? Who picked up the black and white?
I'm not sure, but at that point in time, it was pretty much close to the end anyway. So
It may not have been anybody.
yeah, there may not have been a magazine line going at that time.
Okay. But going back earlier, you were talking about creators' rights, and this was massive. This was major
Hmm.
because prior creators really didn't have an out to say, this is my stuff, this is my creation. And that, to me, was one of the big selling points of the whole line.
Right. And apparently they just couldn't find a way from a business standpoint to make it work.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things that you gotta if you're gonna pay basically freelance rates, you got to be able to sell the books to make that up. And they didn't. I mean, honestly, they didn't. They weren't around long enough to build the audience that you'd need to do that. So unless you do, again, unless you can do what Image did, which was take a huge chunk of business, not necessarily away from a major publisher like Marvel, but I mean, they managed to start off. Marvel made them popular, and then they ran with that, and enough people were interested in what they were doing post Marvel that they started out with a pretty good sized customer base, if I'm not mistaken. And Atlas Seaboard didn't have that. They had what they were trying to chip away at Marvel, but they were doing it from the outside, whereas the Image gang could do it from the inside, essentially. Not that I'm not accusing anybody of insider trading or whatever, but you know.
No, you're right. I can see that. It is unfortunate that it didn't last any longer than, 10 months maybe?
Probably.
And as a result, you just have a footnote in history now for Atlas Seaboard.
Mm-hmm.
The characters, I thought, were well written. They did rely on some things, trying to steal ideas about characters, but I think they established themselves as good comic collection right there.
And to your stealing comment, I remember reading. I think it's the Atlas Archives. I believe that's the website. I'll go back and verify, and we'll put the link in the show notes. I remember reading something where there was discussions of trying to obtain licensing for certain things for the book, and primarily like I said, Omega Man, and their general response was, well, we'll just do our own version. Well, other publishers do that. You know, I don't want to come. It sound like we're saying this was a company of just stealing ideas from other publishers or other properties, but you know, a lot of companies do that. A lot of, hey, that's a good idea. Let's do that with our own take or some such.
Well, and ultimately, it's not necessarily the company that's doing it. I mean,
That,
what you're
that's
doing
true.
is you're bringing in a bunch of creators who have done most of their work at Marvel and Atlas before them, and so I mean, the characters that they're coming up with are ones that are not that different from what they have been doing, and so it's what they're used to doing. And so, yeah, they're probably going to look similar, and they're probably going to have some similar ideas because that's kind of what they know. And it doesn't necessarily. I mean, you're not going to creator owned today is. I don't want to say you're sitting around waiting for a great idea because you're not. You're working your ass off coming up with 50 ideas, and hopefully one of them's great. These guys didn't have time to do that. They had to pretty much come up with an idea and run with it. And so if an idea was not that different from something they had been doing 6-8 months ago for another publisher, then so be it. They had to go. They had to get stuff out the door because they had to start making money at some point. You know, I mean, again, it comes down to the idea of being creative for profit, or at least for survival, and it's not easy, and to me it's not surprising that they're maybe not the most original ideas in the world. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, two different people can take the same story seed and come up with two totally different stories. And one of them, they may both be great, they may both suck, but one of them may be better than the other. And it's kind of just the way that the system works.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. Cool. Atlas, we miss you. Hope to see you back again sometime soon. Any final thoughts before we move on to our weekly picks?
I'll just throw in there that I'm optimistic about it, given that Dynamite's the one with the license at this point.
Yeah,
As long as they just decide to do something with it, I mean, I'm sure what they'll do with it will be very much worth checking out.
I'm sure Dynamite and Jason Goodman can get together and work something out to where either we can see new adventures of these characters or get these reprinted or both, preferably both. But who knows?
I'm with you guys there.
Cool. So when we come back, be our weekly picks. And we're back. It's time for weekly picks, and leading off this week is Les.
For my first pick, it's an Image book, Kill or Be Killed, #4. Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips are the creators of this one. And in this one, the main character's secret collides with his home life. So if I remember, this is a killer that has to now reconcile his profession with his home life. This is the end of the first story arc, and you've got Brubaker and Phillips, who worked on Criminal and I believe Sleeper before, so they know how to work together and put out a top-notch story. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, this has been a fun one.
Awesome. Mikey.
All right. Well, my first pick is an IDW joint, and it is entitled Jackboot and Iron Heel, which is a fun title, I think. I like it. But this is #4. This is 4 of 4. So this is the end of the arc. I don't know that this is an ongoing, but I think it would be really cool if it was. It is about a British soldier, I believe he's a tail gunner, if I remember right. Shot down over Germany, taken prisoner, and he's being held in this castle kind of up in the mountains. And there's some really strange shit going on in this castle. And the Nazi soldiers are starting to freak out about some of the weird supernatural stuff that's going on. Apparently there's this soldier who had been killed before Eddie got there, who is now coming back, and it is written and drawn by Max Milgate, and I really enjoyed this. It's got a great horror tinge to it. It's been a lot of fun.
Sounds very intriguing.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Oh, you've been reading it too?
I checked out the first issue, so I'm a little behind, of course. But it was definitely kind of interesting.
Yeah. See, and the first issue got, it was kind of a nice slow burn start. It has gotten a lot more interesting since.
Okay.
So
yeah, I need to catch up.
Definitely check it out.
Okay. Cool. My first choice is from Chapter House Comics. It is Die Kitty Die, #2, written by Dan Parent and Fernando Ruiz, and illustrated by Dan Parent. These are the guys from the House of Archie style, but they've done some really cool stuff on their own, and this is one of the titles. The first issue was a blast. The premise is Kitty is a young, beautiful witch who has her own comic book series. There's a comic book series based on her. And after a long, successful run, the sales have started to decline. And so the publisher decides the best thing to do is to kill off the character in the comic. But he wants to take it a step further to get a little bit more of a media sensation and decides to kill her in real life as well. And yeah, a little dark, but it's fun. I mean, it's very much Archie style, but it is on the dark side. But it's been a fun. The first issue, I had to go back and read it again because it was just I enjoyed it so much. So I'm ready for the next issue.
I am too. I read that and really enjoyed what was going on. The back issue stories that they had in there, the advertisements they had in there.
A lot of
I
in jokes in there too about the
Oh,
industry
so
too.
many. And I've got a feeling that they are taking a stab at the comics industry as
Oh,
well.
definitely, definitely.
But they're pulling it off, and they're making it enjoyable, not for all ages,
No.
but they're making it enjoyable for the readers for sure.
Yep.
And parents' artwork is just so fitting for this kind of title. So I
Yep.
got a feeling it's going to go far.
Yep. I agree. Les, what's your next pick?
My second pick is also from Image. Moonshine #2. Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Risso are the creators of this one. If you read the first issue, which I really recommend, in this story, there's a gangster, Lou Perlo, and he was sent to negotiate a deal with the top moonshine maker in the Appalachians. What he found was he was in the middle of a family feud, and now one of the family members might be a werewolf. So we're going to get a little bit of the supernatural or the horror type mixed in with gangsters. And I haven't seen anything like that since I believe it was the series Daymen by Stelfreeze, if I recall.
Right. Yep.
And that was so much fun to read because you had in that one you had the 30s gangsters having to face off against monsters.
Hmm.
This one is kind of the similar ilk, and issue 1 was fun. I think this was going to be a good one too.
Cool.
Very cool. Alrighty, Mikey.
Alrighty, my second pick is a Valiant book, and it is Britannia. #3 is coming out, I believe, this week, and this is a 4-issue mini, and this is one I'd like to see continue. This is set in ancient Rome. I believe, oh, now I'm drawing a blank. I think Nero is the emperor in this, but he's a bit part at best. The main character is Antonius Axia, who is or was a Roman soldier who had an issue, we'll just say, with the what would be the Roman Legion equivalent of PTSD. He saw something he really, 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 really wished he hadn't, and was nursed back to health by the Temple of Vesta. And as their way of doing this was basically to turn him into a Holmesian style detective. And so several years later, he's sort of doing that in Rome, and the Empire has run into a problem out in Britannia, the British Isles, and so they send him to figure it out. And there's some darkness to this, and there's some definitely some horror tinges in this book as well. Apparently, that's my thing for this week. apparently I'm still hanging on to Halloween a little too tightly. But there's some great some of the dialogue in this title has just been really awesome. It's just been really fun. It's a really cool read if you're into detective stories and or horror at all.
The artwork is good in this one too.
Oh, very much so.
Yep.
Juan Jose.
It just gives you the feel.
Is amazing. Yeah, it's written by Peter Milligan and the art is Juan Jose Reap. And so, yeah, beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Yep. I agree. It's a very good choice. My second choice is from DC Comics, and it's a collection, and it's called Superman: The Coming of the Superman. It was written and illustrated by Neil Adams. This was a fun read. Reading this 16-issue miniseries brought back some of the old school Superman stories, pre-crisis, that kind of thing. And almost everybody's in there. You got Luthor, you got Darkseid, you got obviously the coming of Superman actually refers to people from Kandor and from the Bottle City. It was just a wild ride, but I dug it. I thought it was really, really good.
It was a good series, and Neil Adams' work, explains everything right there. He has a talent of being a storyteller.
Yeah, the art was phenomenal. I really enjoyed the story. I didn't really dig Batman Odyssey, and I probably need to go back and read that again. But I thought this was a better story. But that's just me. Any honorable mentions this week?
Yeah, I'll throw one in.
Okay.
Reborn #2 comes out this week.
Okay.
If you did not read the first issue, grab it because it's really cool.
I'm going to toss Lady Killer in.
Oh yeah, I saw that one. Come in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with those two as well. Another good week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any special mentions? Anything you want to bring up before we start wrapping things up?
No, not yet.
Okay. Cool. Les?
Nothing here.
Okay. All right. Cool. Okay, we'll get into our shout-outs. And first off is Manny the Martyr for our awesome music for the podcast. Thank you, guys. When you're on our website, go to our podcast page if you're not already there. There's a link to I believe it's their Facebook page. And there will also be a link in our show notes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys. You rock. Second of all, #Podern Family from Twitter. Family of podcasts who promote each other, and they've been nice enough to spread the word of the fellowship. Thank you guys so very, very much. If you're not, you don't have to be on Twitter, but if you can go to Twitter and just do a search for #Podern Family, and you can find a podcast on anything, and you won't regret it. A lot of good shows out there.
A couple of good shows out there that I think we should direct your attention to.
Oh, definitely.
Are the Amish Baby Machine podcast, which is fun just for the title alone, but a couple of dudes talking about anything and everything. So go listen to them. Another one is The Countdown, which is a movie podcast. These guys are out of Australia, and they're doing wonderful work. They have movie lists every week, doing fun stuff. And honestly, I will admit that I'm calling them out because basically they called us out. They shouted us out, or me. I can't remember if it was me or us, but anyway, shouting them out.
Definitely, and of course, as usual, Jake and Tom always shout out to us, so let's shout out to them as well.
Sure, why not?
I know there are several others that I'm blanking on right now. Guys, I'm sorry. But
and there's so many of them. There's so many
yeah.
shows out there. If I mean, anything you could ever want to listen to, learn about, whatever, check them out.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, the final shout out is to you, dear listener. Thank you for the downloads. Thank you for listening to the show. It's much appreciated. We're always interested in hearing your input. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, feel free to contact us. Do we have a question this week?
Are there any older comics that you wouldn't mind seeing rebooted or reprinted that you've run across in your reading of comics over the years?
Okay, that works. Sounds good. Let us know your answer, and let us know what you think about the show and anything else. Best way to do that is you can go to our website again, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Go to our About Us, Contact Us page. You can fill out a form there. We will get that. Or you can send us a little note via email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Or you can contact us through social media. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks, or on Twitter, as we already mentioned, at Fellowship Geeks. Mikey has his own Twitter page, at Mikey Geek, and I have one as well, at TomTCGeek. Follow us and let us know that, hey, heard about y'all from the podcast. And we'll go, hey, thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm. We'll do that.
Definitely.
And if you happen to get a chance after you've downloaded us and listened to us, maybe throw up a rating for us.
Yeah, definitely.
Even a review. I mean, we're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, we're on Google Play. We even post our stuff up on YouTube, if that's a viable option for you. Give us a thumbs up or whatever. Tell us, hey, good job. Tell them. Basically, what you're doing is you're telling the places where we are that you like us, that somebody likes us. You like us. You really like us. But it helps them know that we have an audience, and maybe good things will happen to us over time with that. So, the usual stuff.
Yes, by all means, please go rate us, and if you have a moment and would like to, a review would definitely be appreciated. Thank you, guys. Anything else? I think that's it, isn't it?
No, just thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. It is much appreciated, and we love you guys. Until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,